Alright. So in most countries, when there's a blackout, it's breaking news. People start tweeting, emergency crews show up, local news stations may even interrupt their regular programming. In Nigeria, it's just another Tuesday. There are adults in countries like Japan and Switzerland who have never experienced a blackout ever in their life. Meanwhile, babies in Nigeria learn up NEPA as part of their vocabulary. Here, the grid is so fragile that darkness is the default setting, and NEPA bringing light feels like an unexpected visitor. We've been conditioned to believe that our electricity crisis is an unsolvable mystery, a toxic mix of corruption, infrastructural rot, and sheer incompetence that no human being can untangle. But how complex is it really? Welcome to It's Not Rocket Science, where we stop treating Nigeria's biggest problems like it's a mystical secret and start looking at the maths. Today, we're talking about the grid. Let's start with the numbers. First of all, 24/7 electricity is not some ghost problem that scientists are still trying to figure out. Dozens of countries all over the world have already cracked the code. We don't need to reinvent the wheel or start all over again. We can literally copy their homework. In fact, the formula is shockingly straightforward. To deliver 24/7 stable electricity to 1 million people, you need to generate 1,000 megawatts of electricity. That's the baseline standard everywhere. Now, look at Nigeria. We have a population of over 200 million people. We do the quick maths, you realize that you need to be generating 200,000 megawatts of electricity. That's the exact genesis of the problem. On a good day, when the planets align and everyone fasts and prays, our national grid can only generate just about 4,000 megawatts into the system. Look at that deficit. That's why every Nigerian walks around with a power bank. It's like trying to fly in a Boeing 747 airplane using the engine of a keke napep. It's just not going to work. The system is failing not because of bad luck, but because it is mathematically impossible to power 200 million homes with the energy footprint of a small city. Right now, Nigeria has about 28 power plants connected to the single central grid. If every single one of them is working, we can theoretically hit about 15,000 megawatts. That's a bit better, but it's still not enough. While the absolute target is 200,000 megawatts, industry experts predict that we can manage with 33,000 or 30,000 megawatts. That would be at least enough to give us steady power. Not sufficient to cover everybody, but at least we can manage with that. So a quick recap, we are currently producing 4,000 megawatts of electricity. We need about 200,000 megawatts, and we can comfortably manage with 30,000 megawatts. Keep those numbers in your head. So how on earth did the country this massive end up with less power than what is used by a single American city? Let's do a quick history lesson. In 1972, the Nigerian government created NEPA. It was a giant centralized federal monopoly controlled fully by the government. For the next 2 decades, Nigeria went through intense political instability and rapid regime changes. And between 1979 and 1999, a whole 20 years, the Nigerian government built exactly 0 new power plants. Think about that. In those 20 years, our population nearly doubled. We went from 70 million people to over 110 million people, but our electricity generation stayed completely frozen. Naturally, the system began to rot. By 2013, the government finally admitted that they could not run that giant rotting machine anymore, so they decided to privatize it. They chopped the old PSCN into 3 distinct pieces: the GENCOs to generate power, the DISCOs to distribute and sell it, and the transmission company to move power from the power plants to your neighborhood. They kept transition companies under strict federal control, but sold the GENCOs and DISCOs to private investors. So what we did was we took a broken centralized government monopoly and sliced it into different pieces. And then we handed over those pieces to a bunch of private buyers. Surprisingly, it solved absolutely nothing. It just upgraded us from a public failure to a private mess. Now, the reason privatization flopped is simple. The core issue was not about who owned who or who controlled who. We simply were not making enough power. Remember what I said earlier, we need to scale up to 200,000 megawatts and we're only producing 4,000. So how on earth do we get 24/7 power with that? So why doesn't the federal government just pull out the national checkbook and write a massive check to build power plants? Let's look at how much it will cost. According to the Global Infrastructure Benchmark, building a modern power plant costs an average of $1 million for every single megawatt. To reach the 200,000 megawatts that we absolutely need, we're looking at a bill of about $200 billion. And that's just for the power plant. We have not talked about the cost of the infrastructure. All the other things are broken, transformers and the transmission lines and all of that. Now let's look at Nigeria's balance sheet. Nigeria's total federal budget for the entire fiscal year of 2026, that's the money meant for defense, education, health, road, and even civil servants. Everything is about 35 trillion naira. That's barely $20 billion if you convert it. The invoice just to fix our electricity is 10 times the size of our country's entire budget. To put that in perspective, imagine that you are earning an annual salary of 5 million, then someone hands you a bill of 50 million naira. That's basically Nigeria trying to fix electricity. Let me paint a picture in case you still don't get it. If the president today decided to shut down every federal university, close down every public hospital, stop paying salaries, and freeze all road construction for the next 10 years just to fund electricity alone, we still would not have enough money to clear the bill. The financial bankruptcy is exactly why the government sold off the Gencos in 2013. Now, the plan at the time was that wealthy private investors would step in and pour their own billions into upgrading the system. So why are these private investors not doing this? Why are they not spending the money? It's because the entire sector is a brutal financial trap. Now think about it from an investor's perspective. If a private company decides to spend the $1 billion needed to build a beautiful new power plant, they will have to send that power that they are generating through a centralized government-owned transmission system that collapses every second. And if the power somehow ends up surviving these transmission lines, the disposed are proving over time that they are unable to collect money from the final consumers. So where we are right now is that the numbers don't add up because millions of Nigerian homes don't have meters. Discos rely on what we call estimated billing, which is basically just a polite time for spiritual guesswork. They look at your household and then they estimate how much you are going to pay. And Nigerians also decide that if they are going to estimate my bill, then I'm not going to pay. So it's a cycle of mutual distrust. Consumers feel like they are being robbed, so they decide to rob the discos back by bypassing meters or tapping wires or simply not paying. Right now, roughly 40% of the power that is generated in Nigeria is lost due to technical decay and straight up electricity theft. That is exactly why investors don't want to put in money into the system. So we are stuck at the dead end. The private companies can't invest. The federal government is broke and we are still sitting in the dark. How exactly do we fix this? We have to completely balkanize the grid. And I know that sounds like something your doctor will tell you after your annual checkup. Sounds like a big time. But what it simply means is that we need to break up the giant grids that we are currently running into smaller, independent ones. That way, we can stop waiting for a centralized miracle from Abuja. And this solution is not as far-fetched as it sounds. Thanks to the updated Electricity Act, the federal monopoly over power is officially dead. Every single state in Nigeria can now has the legal right to take full control of their own energy needs. This completely changes the maths. It now means that we don't need $200 billion lump sum to save Nigeria all at once. Each state can just solve the equation for their own local borders. We can slice the giant regional discos into separate state-level entities instead of a massive company like IBUDC trying to manage multiple states across the southwest. Every state can get its own dedicated distribution company. States can then license private investors to build small modular power plants inside their own territory, completely bypassing the national grid. Look at Lagos State, for instance. The state needs an estimated 12,000 megawatts of electricity to power its massive industrial hubs. But in the current situation, the state only gets about 1,000 megawatts of electricity, and that is not enough to give them 24/7 power. So to break free, Lagos does not need to fix the whole country. It just needs about $12 billion in targeted private contracts to build its own independent Lagos State market, a process that they've already started with the launch of the Lagos Independent System Operator. Another great example is Abia State. Through the geometric power project that is currently ongoing in the state has been able to invest its own territory. They built a 141 megawatt fast power plant, and that has helped them to insulate themselves from the national grid drama. So when the national grid collapses or anything happens, the machines in our back can still keep on working. Smaller states like Kogi State or Kwara don't even need that large amount of money. They could achieve stable electrification with just 4,000 megawatts or even less, meaning that they just need about $2 billion or a smaller amount to get 24/7 power. Now, $2 billion is a fraction of the federal nightmare that we talked about, right? But even with that, it's still a mountain of cash for an individual state in Nigeria. For context, a state like Ogun receives about 10 to 14 billion naira as its monthly federal allocation. And if you convert that, that's just about $9 billion a month. So we've hit the same wall again. Even if we decide to balkanize the grid, no state in Nigeria can write a $500 million check without instantly bankrupting their entire state. So what do we do? Now, the good thing here is that the state isn't supposed to spend its own money to fix this. Under the centralized system that we are currently running, the private sector is the one that is meant to fund the infrastructure, right? So the state government's job in all of this isn't to buy the gas turbines or establish a new or create a new power plant. So if the state government is not spending money, what's their role in making all of this happen? The job of the state government is to create an environment where those investors are guaranteed that they won't get robbed. To make this work, a state governor only needs to focus on 3 specific things. First, they need to set up a fair state regulatory commission, and this is purely administrative. You don't even need to build it from scratch. You can just compare the existing discos to register a distinct subsidiary for your state. Your state regulator now completely dictates the rule, the customer service standard, and the tariffs for the specific zones. The regulator's job is to protect the investor's money. To do this, they must deploy specialized mobile codes and security task forces that crack down ruthlessly on meter bypassing and wiretapping. If your investors know that stealing power in your state comes with swift legal consequences, they will be inclined to bring their money. Secondly, they need to set up a risk guarantee fund. This is the most critical money that the state government will actually spend on a project like this. Currently, investors are afraid that they will not recover their money. A smart state can take a fraction of their monthly allocation or internally generated revenue and put it into a central fund, tucked away in a secure escrow account. They can now tell the investors to come and build in their state, and if there is a payment shortfall in a month, then that fund will cover their baseline until the issue is sorted out. That single piece of paper will eliminate the investor's fear. The third thing that the state needs to do is to provide value in kind. So instead of cash, the state contributes things like land, security, and right-of-way access. Now, let's be completely objective. This decentralized state-level model that I just proposed isn't a flawless magic wand. It still has a few serious hurdles that we need to cross. The first issue is gas supply. Most of our generation capacity currently in Nigeria relies on natural gas, and Nigeria's pipeline network is a highly centralized system that runs through specific geographic corridors. Some states are simply far away from the gas pipeline and they cannot run that system. But that's the beauty of this state-by-state solution. You don't use the same template everywhere. If your state does not have access to the gas pipelines, you don't build a gas plant. You can pivot. Northern states that have a lot of sunlight can use massive solar arrays. States in the Niger Delta can still use gas, while other regions can come up with small-scale hydropower plants or biomass or other method of generating power. Second issue is legal pushback. The existing structure still give the discos some territories, and it still holds federal licenses. They will not just sit back and watch the states open up the market to competitors. But governors don't have to forcefully seize assets for discos. Instead, they can negotiate amicably or simply license entirely new parallel mini grids to major investors that are coming into their states. Finally, there is the ultimate elephant in the room, which is payment collection. Balkanizing the grid doesn't automatically change human behavior. If a state sets up a beautiful escrow fund to guarantee private investments, but it is then skipped bypassing meters and bribing local field staff, the state fund will be completely drained within 6 months. To fix this, we need to ruthlessly come up with localized enforcement. States must mandate smart meters that communicate directly with a central monitoring system. They must recruit honest law enforcement officers and aggressively educate the public about the dangers of cutting corners, because that's exactly how we got here in the first place. So as you can see, fixing Nigeria's power problem isn't about waiting for a magical federal savior in Abuja to repair a fragile national grid. In fact, I dare say that any presidential candidate that is standing on the podium and promising you 24/7 electricity based on the current system is simply lying to your face. The real power now sits directly on the text of the 36 state governors that we have in the country. As the next election season approaches, take a close look at the people that are contesting for governorship in your states. If their manifesto does not include a precise, legally backed plan for your state's independent energy market, they are completely unserious. Stop voting for governors whose only plan for electricity is to go for Abuja and beg for better allocation. Start voting for leaders who have the structural understanding and the political lever to turn on the lights themselves. But you could just vote for me, since I clearly have the whole blueprint already. Because when you strip away the political noise, look at the law and analyze the maths, you realize it's not rocket science.